All right, folks, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. I'm sure more folks are going to be joining, but thank you all for joining us here today. I'm going to just jump to the next slide. I'm Cheryl Belinsky. I am the team lead for our Farm to School program at Cornell Harvest, New York, and I'm joined here by my team of fantastic coordinators. Their pictures are all on the bottom, so I am not going to spend time introducing them all, but we will send out the slides after. So if you would like to connect with a coordinator in your region, please do. That's what we're here for. I'm going to provide some really high-level information about the 30% program. We're going to talk a little bit about USDA product swaps, and then we are going to dedicate the rest of our time to speaking with our 4 fabulous panelists about the 30% program and the strategic use of USDA foods. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat box. We'll actively be moderating it and likely share out the chat content afterwards with a recording of the webinar and of the presentation as well. So please feel free to use that if you have questions. We are hoping that at the end of our moderated session that we'll be able to take questions from the panelists as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in really quickly to just some really high-level 30% success. The program turned 5 this year, which is pretty exciting. And the map on the right is just a visual depiction of 30% success to date. And so collectively, we've had 77 school food authorities be successful in the 30% initiative, and they represent 90 or so school districts, understanding some of them are BOCES. To date, $26.2 million has been spent on New York foods through the program. And we know that's likely an underestimation, as many SFAs, or some SFAs at least, stop counting when they hit that 30% number. We had 13 first-timers in 22-23, and I just really want to celebrate this, not to take away from the success of our achievers of 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 in years, but we put 13 new stars on the map this year, and you see those here. We have a concentrated group in the Hudson Valley, in the North Country, one on the western part of the state, one on the eastern part of the state, and our first success story on Long Island. And I really do want to acknowledge none of that happened by accident, which is one of the things that we're going to be talking about here today, is the intention that goes into this program. But I think this is really amazing to see. I also wanted to acknowledge that we had the first school to reach the threshold without using liquid milk. We love liquid milk, but also know that it's been a challenge for certain regions to be able to procure, and so previously we had never seen a spending pattern that did not include liquid milk, and we had our first this year. And I want to call out Buffalo Public Schools. They're the one red dot on the western part of the state. They're the only school food authority that has been successful all 5 years. So really want to honor that commitment that they've made. These are 30% by the numbers. So this just shows, again, total spend. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this chart. But it is pretty exciting to see that we had almost a 16% year-over-year increase in successful SFAs from the 21-22 school year to the 22-23. Again, remembering that this is a reimbursement program. And we saw a 20% year-over-year, 27%, year-over-year increase in the amount of money that was spent on eligible New York products. And that's money that's directly supporting our New York farmers. So I want to thank those 77 SFAs and just acknowledge the amazing accomplishment that this is. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Becky.
Hi there, I'm Becky O'Connor, Farm to School Coordinator in Western New York and the Finger Lakes. And this slide is just showing some product swaps that you can do. So right now you might be thinking about how you're going to utilize your entitlement. And obviously a big part of that is ordering your commodity foods. So we first did this chart a few years ago, and there were a handful of good product swaps on here. And when we updated it last year and this year, we just have so many more products that are either direct swaps for items that are really commonly ordered, USDA commodity foods that are very commonly ordered, or are very close swaps. So we will be sending this out to you because this is a really, really small font here. I'm sure it's really hard to see if you're looking at it on a laptop like I am. So we'll be sending you a PDF of this with a recording afterwards. But these are some of our top 50 products. I did include numbers 51 and 52 because we have some great swaps for them. But you can look right here and see the USDA commodity food number. So for example, for applesauce, those are your number 1 and number 12 items ordered in New York State. And we have so many direct product swaps for applesauce. Mott's has 49 applesauce products and ZZ's has 16 applesauce products that are great. We now have so many different cheese products too. Great Lakes cheese and Cabot have been around for several years now. And then this year, Belgioioso, I don't know if I'm saying that right. They've gotten on the map too. All these products that we have on here are also in the 30% New York database. Maybe somebody can drop that in the chat real quick. Save for, if you're looking at the beef products on here, we do indicate that many of these products, such as ground beef or beef patties, are available through local vendors. And that's something that we can absolutely help you out with. Does anybody have any questions about this chart?
Great. Thank you, Becky. And like Becky said, we will share that out. It is a small font. And I think someone will be dropping the link to the database where you can find distributors that are stocking many of these items. So I'm going to pass it over to Katie.
All right. So my name is Katie Sheehan Lopez. I'm the farm to school coordinator in the Upper Hudson Valley. And I am introducing one of our panelists, Lauren Kalika, who's the food service director in Pauling. And they're one of the first school districts in the Hudson Valley to achieve the 30%. So they're based in Dutchess County, all the way on the Connecticut border. Around 500 students every day eating lunch. However, they recently enrolled in CEP, so that number will likely go up. And approximate food budget is $187,000 a year. So we'll be hearing from Lauren about some of her strategies. And now I will pass it to Christy.
Before passing it over to Christy, and Christy, I'm going to get you there. I just wanted to explain what the wheels are. So the colorful wheels are each SFA's 30% spend from last year. And really what our intention here is to show that there are many different pathways to the 30%. So you're going to see these on every slide. Sorry about that. Take it away, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Apostolides. I'm the Regional Farm School Coordinator for the Lower Hudson Valley, and I'm excited to announce Middletown. Don Levy as the Food Service Director for Middletown in Orange County. The AGP, the average daily participation for the students eating lunch at her school is about 5,000. They've been participating in CEP for a while. Not exactly sure. They know they have a high percentage of free and reduced meals populations, and their food budget is approximately 1.7 million. So a pretty large school. And if you look at the wheel there, they spend, quite a large percentage on dairy products to get to the 30%. And I will pass it along to Lizzie.
Hi everyone, I'm Lizzie Cooper, the Farm to School Coordinator in Central New York, and I'm introducing Sarah Keene with Schuylerville School District. So they're in Saratoga County, and some of you may know Sarah from the state ed presentations over the summer, but their district is serving about 920 meals for lunch, but similar to Pauling, recently enrolled in CEP, so that number will hopefully go up. And their approximate food budget is 400,000. And this beautiful colors over here, you can see a lot of mix between fruit, meat, and then of course dairy. So a really balanced wheel here. And I will pass it to Becky.
Hi there, me again, Becky O'Connor in Western New York and the Finger Lakes. I have the pleasure of introducing Ann Rich with Frontier Central School District. She's in a little bit of a unique position because she was formerly with Hamburg Central School District and led them to 30% success for 3 years. Frontier is in Erie County. The lunch ADP is just over 2,100 right now, but they now have 3 of 6 buildings participating in CEP. And with that and the changes that Anne has been making to the lunch program, they've really been seeing a big increase in ADP. Her estimated food budget for Frontier is $850,000 this year due to that increased participation in the meal program.
Great. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing, and we are going to go into the moderated portion of our panel. I believe Megan is up first, so I'm going to pass the first question over to her. But again, please do use the chat if you have questions or comments that you want to ask of us as the hosts or of the panelists as we go.
Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Doman. I'm the Farm to School Coordinator for the North Country. The first question for our panelists is, what does your 30% journey look like? Please be specific. Let us know when your planning starts and what it looks like. Lauren, you're the first director that I see. Would you like to go ahead and get started?
Sure. So for polling specifically, we started our journey the year before last year. So the year before I intended to apply, I started to look at what I was spending and where I was spending it and where I needed to make the changes to increase that number, which was only slightly. Thankfully, we had already bought local milk. So as you saw on my wheel, that accounts for almost 50% of my New York spending. So that is a huge no-brainer in a sense. It is obviously going to impact you if you're not currently buying local milk and you take that leap to local milk, which can be considerably more expensive. And when you make those leaps, your planning phase should also include where you intend to make up that deficit by spending more on milk for a New York product. Perhaps you want to begin processing your breaded chicken products, or maybe processing your pizza products, whatever it might be that works for you to offset that spend, so it doesn't impact your bottom line too greatly. The other most important thing in your planning stage would be to get your administrators on board. I'm very fortunate here in Pauling. I have the board president who is very health and wellness forward, supports local businesses, and my champions as far as the superintendent and the assistant superintendent for finance, along with the board, being on my side for these initiatives and realizing the importance. If you have that step done, or if not, that's something that you should work on first and foremost, because they're going to be able to approve your purchases and support you in a way to be able to make those purchases, which may be a little bit.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Sarah, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'll just start by piggybacking on something Lauren said, that you need board and administrative buy-in, because one thing that a lot of people realize very quickly is that some New York State products can be more expensive. So you have to spend money to make money. And that first year that you're going for the 30%, you're not getting that additional reimbursement yet. So that's something to pitch to your board and to your business official, and to just be aware that, hey, this is coming down the road. This is something that we believe in as a district, and we might need to make the initial investment in order to get there. So it's really good to get that administrative buy-in on the front end. For me, my timeline for the 30%, and this is our 4th year now that we've had it in Schuylerville, I like to start in the summer planning ahead, but really it goes back even further, because this time of year is when we're starting to think about next year's commodities. And so a lot of us just attended the regional industry seminars. So I'm starting to think in the back of my head, okay, well, what do I have a lot of inventory of, and what have I been buying locally that maybe is really hurting my food budget? So at this point in the year, December, January, before the commodity diversions are due, is a really great time to start thinking about next year's 30% goals. And if you want to go after it, what kinds of changes are you going to need to make to the way that you did your commodity ordering and your diversions for this upcoming year? One other thing that I like to do that we'll probably talk about later is to track the numbers as I go too, and to just keep tabs on where I am. I've heard from a lot of districts that come April, they start thinking, oh, well, maybe I should apply for the 30%. But at that point, it's a little too late to go back and change what you've done for the whole school year. So I like to start planning in the summer and then do little quarterly check-ins to just run the calculator maybe every other month or so and make sure I'm on track, because that way I can make changes throughout the school year if I need to adjust my numbers. So it really is a moving target.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Deb, would you like to go next?
Thanks, Megan. Oh, it's never too late to start planning. So if you do find yourself in a place where you think you might be able to get there, think about who your resources are. Cornell is your #1 champion, and to help you get to that number, and they are aware of different mentors or other folks who are doing it and have some shortcuts or best practices that really help keep the target in line. I think if I remember correctly, on all the circles, I'm the largest school district there. It's not so intimidating when you can like delegate the work out. Like 30% did not happen because of me. 30% happened because of all of my leads in the kitchen, the purchasing power that we have, what bids we're involved in. And for us, some really exciting news happened last week at our board meeting. We asked the Board of Education to increase the discretionary threshold for New York State products exclusively from $20,000 to $150,000. So that opens up a great wheel of opportunity for us to purchase the items that are off bid. So don't be afraid to plan late, because you can always tap into your resources.
Great, thank you, Deb. And last but not least, Anne, would you like to go ahead?
So I think that planning for us is actually kind of starting now, already started, like starting with a harvest of the month calendar, knowing what you want to highlight during the school year, so that so like in our area here in Western New York, we have gotten together, to discuss a harvest of the month calendar, and we're getting a geo preference bid out with the help of Becky O'Connor, so that we can give our numbers to the farmers now, so that they have what we would like to purchase before they start planting. I know this year I had some issues trying to get some things for our harvest of the month plan, because the farmers didn't have that information early enough for planting. So that's one thing. And then and for me, I don't know, like whenever I try to look at my numbers and plan, like when I first started the first year in 2018, when I was in Hamburg, I based everything off the previous year. I jacked numbers up a little bit, but then it just wasn't enough. So I'm thinking I'm on track. And then I got to the end of the year and I wasn't. I just made it. But then there were issues when they came in, there was issues with one of our school's production records. So they wouldn't accept any milk at all for the one school because the production records were off. So that was highly disappointing, because that first year was a lot of work. Spent a lot of time doing it, and then got booted out because of production records. So just making sure that your staff is trained, make sure that you have processes in place, for them to easily follow. So for your tracking, that's just a good idea. And for me now, if I can make a swap, I swap it. There's items that I won't use anymore, like New York egg rolls that doubled in price. It's just a matter of keeping an eye on those prices and really knowing what your prices are on your, that you're paying now through your bid, and what are the prices. It's entitlement money, but it's still money. So like something like, you just want to compare those prices and see if it is a good swap. Always look at that unit price. That's it.
Great, thank you, Anne. These are all such great responses. I will pass it along now to SJ for our next question.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is SJ Whelan. I am the Farm to School Coordinator for New York City. And so my next question for the panelists is, how does planning for the 30% affect your USDA food spending for both brown box and DoD products? What intentional decisions do you make in how and when you spend your USDA funds? Please be as granular as possible. So for example, I buy this and not that because of the availability of this New York food product. And so I will kick this question off for Deb first.
Thanks. So, we get quite a bit of dollars through our OGS programming. So one of the first things that we take a look at is our 6-week cycle. We take a look at that and what items are available through OGS and what items are available through the open market, and which of those open market items can be New York State. So when you balance it, and it is really a balance, what to spend your OGS funds on, say in our area, cupped applesauce. The applesauce cups that are available through OGS are Peterson Farms, which is a New York State farm. So if I buy them on the street, or do I buy them through OGS? So when we took a look at where our general spending was, we nearly crossed the finish line with just the milk purchases alone. However, when it comes to OGS diversion, not diverting, it's about a philosophy. We stopped diverting a lot of money into our proteins. We buy a lot of the canned good items. We do the cheese for pizza. We do beef for hamburgers and meatballs, but not exclusively, because we do have New York beef days where we do a hamburger, we do a hot dog, we do a meatball. Because as you balance your budget, moderating where you are in the scheme of things keeps you in tune to where you are for the goal. And the new Chef's Corner allows you to trade out your commodities a lot easier now than it has in the past. So if you find yourself too far from your goal and you got to tap out, moderate your New York State initiative a little differently, you can trade your food items around. So we always consider where to bring the item in from and how much of it. Do we have to have 100% of our beef hamburgers come from OGS, or most of it, and then still have the hamburger days? So that's what we did here in Middletown, is we gave 80% of what we usually do and took the 20% that we needed to purchase and purchase New York State. We consider diverting to like chicken. For us to get New York State chicken is really difficult. So we didn't even consider it long. When we did consider it, but we didn't spend a lot of time because we don't have a viable source for that. We do have a viable source for eggs, so we switched who we buy our eggs from. Trying to think, there was a third one that the cheese took a lot of conversation too, because we couldn't buy New York State shredded cheese or brick cheese, but we could buy cheese sticks. So when we wrote our yogurt initiative, it was a 4-ounce yogurt and a cheese stick. So for us to buy the New York State upstate farms yogurt and cheese stick, we were already doing it. So that was easy to pass on the OGS yogurt and their cheese sticks. It's just moderation. You have to always look. You have to monitor where you are and check your pulse and see where you're sliding in, where you're sliding out, and remember, you're not an island. And there's a lot of resources. Tap into the resources. I know that Christy answers the phone all the time. So utilize.
Great, thanks, Deb. Same question now for Anne.
So it just same thing, like what Deb was just saying. It's you really have to look at your total money. I know, like for me, things that changed because because like our accounts, like right now we did become fully CEP. our counts are up, you know, from where we averaged last year, at the end in June at like 1,900, we're up to like 2,500 meals a day. So I'm like running out. I'm already running out of like entitlement money for this year. Like I will run out by probably February, I'm guessing. And and now when we do our ordering come January, in February, when we start doing all that stuff and we get our entitlement dollars are based on last year, not on these numbers. So the money's going to be even tighter for purchasing for next year. Because our entitlement is just not going to match the number of meals that we're serving now. So the first thing that I get rid of is ground beef, because if we're going to use bulk ground beef, I'm going to buy ground beef. And like when it comes to like applesauce, I mean, like so far, I mean, we don't, like I might dump applesauce cups, but like I get applesauce cups out of brown box just strictly because, to have an easy option for breakfast, because we can't serve those New York items at breakfast, right? So that's kind of what I do. And you have to look at you really do have to look at your market prices and make sure it's like free money, but it's still money. So like something like orange juice that costs a lot less to purchase in the open market than the cost of it on the government bid. Like I would never get orange juice, or like egg patties was another example, or beef patties. Like they're too expensive on brown box versus what you can, you know, just like purchase those things for. So and DOD now has to play into it. I try to figure about a third on DOD, and then I will do my diversions to cover my center of the plate first, and then I'll go into brown box. In brown box, I'm very, very particular about what I get from them, because you could get a beautiful grilled chicken patty one month, and then the next time it comes around, because that stuff goes out to bid, I want to say quarterly. So like the next time that goes out and you get it, you might get a really crappy grilled chicken patty. But what are you going to do? You have to use your commodities. So now you have to do something with that grilled chicken patty to make it to try to make it appetizing. Right. So I really stick my brown box stuff, stick to like the broccoli florets, and if I want canned fruit or strawberries, I get chicken strips. But even that now this year, I'm not sure how many of those I will be getting, especially now that we have an opportunity to get diced, you know, raw diced New York chicken that we can do anything with. So this year's going to be a little challenging, but that's the kind of things that I stick with for my brown box too, is like American cheese and that. But that is going to be my last piece of the puzzle that I'll fill in after I figure out my diversions in DOD.
Thanks, Sam. Now I'll take it to Sarah.
So our two big swaps that I made when we started going for the 30% would be beef and produce, specifically vegetables. I think a lot of people know New York apples at this point. So when I'm purchasing from DOD, I'll buy the sliced apples in the bag because they're great, they're convenient. We especially use them at breakfast, but I'll never get a whole apple from DOD when I can buy so many apples locally. Same thing with potatoes and carrots if we're buying whole bulk carrots. So my rule of thumb is generally, if I can buy it locally and the price is not outrageous, I'm buying it locally. I get my romaine lettuce and my salad items through DOD. And then we switched to exclusively using New York State ground beef. I know for a lot of schools, it does make sense to do kind of like Deb's 80-20 rule, to keep some of the commodity product around, to keep your price down, but also just to have us back up. But we did switch exclusively to that, to buying local beef for our ground beef, our hamburgers, and we're also buying like top rounds and other beef products from our local supplier, which has been great. And I think it's important that Anne mentioned market prices, because I was shocked this year when I was looking at some of the prices. Broccoli was one that was really high. And I thought, well, why would I do that when I could buy broccoli commercially, especially if I could get a New York State product? But again, those prices do fluctuate, and what worked one year is going to be different another year. And especially with food costs being what they are, I'm really curious come February when we get our survey if I'll change my strategy for next year, depending on which way the prices fluctuate. So, you know, it is a moving target, and what worked one year won't necessarily work the next year. But my big changes have been the beef. I still put a lot of my entitlement dollars toward chicken because, again, local chicken is still very expensive, and toward cheese. So those are my proteins I put my entitlement dollars toward. And then I've been buying mostly New York State frozen vegetables because our kids seem to like them. They'll take the frozen New York green beans over canned green beans. So I'm saving my entitlement money and buying those items, New York State.
Thank you. And finally, Lauren.
These directors had a lot of good points. The last thing that I would input is, as far as your USDA goes, you really need to look at your bid and compared to those. And I know that you kind of have to look at last year's bid in order to compare it to what you're going to purchase for the next year. But I bid shop. This year I joined a different BOCES cooperative to be able to use their produce bid because I knew that that produce vendor, one, could come to my small district in my
Good afternoon.
remote.
Holiday sweater contest.
The ugly sweater. My apologies. The one bad point of having your office in the school building and not in the district office is you get all the announcements and all the bells. But I bid shopped around, and I plan to do that again this year with who I can piggyback with and where I need to go to if our bid doesn't include those New York State items that I would rather purchase as opposed to use as the USDA. And those main items are New York State beef. If that doesn't get on my bid, I'm definitely going to be looking around at other bids as to where I could purchase that before I say, well, my only choice is now to use my entitlement with OGS and losing that New York State allotment for beef. Again, the milk was another big one. And then for my pilot, because I purchased from this one vendor it's Dagley Produce for those of you in the Hudson Valley. If you don't use them, definitely consider using them. They understand the 30%. Every week when I place my order, I give them 2 lists: build the district, build the USDA, and I take out all of those bolded items. For any of you familiar with their price list, they bold all of their items that are pilot eligible. And even if those items are eligible for pilot, I choose to pay for them with district funds just so I can account for them in my New York State 30. And those are the things that I find most valuable without really increasing my cost too much, because now I'm using those USDA entitlement dollars that I normally used on produce for things like breaded chicken products that, you know, we're not to the point with the skill set of my staff to bring in raw chicken and start breading those things ourselves yet. I hope one day we might be, but like Deb expressed, getting in chicken to our area hasn't been seamless yet. So that's one of the things I know that I can push off and spend my entitlement dollars on. So it does take that scale of looking at your distribution, because that to me is the hardest part of getting the New York State items to your school's distribution, especially depending on where you're located.
Super helpful. Thank you, everyone. And now for our next question, I will pass the mic over to Amy.
Thanks, SJ. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Bly. I'm the coordinator for the Long Island region. My question is, how do you balance the often higher cost of New York foods and menu planning, and do USDA foods play a role in the budgeting process? If so, how? I'm going to ask Sarah to go first on this one.
So the first thing I would say is that you have to spend some money to make some money here. And so while what you initially see those dollar signs when you're looking at some of these New York products, you do need to spend that money in order to reach the 30% threshold. And it's going to be very district specific. I know some districts that are more rural, they're spending almost twice what I spend on milk alone. So they may not need to spend as much money on items like beef or New York State apples to reach that 30%, whereas I would. So yes, those dollar signs can be tough to stomach, but they'll also help you make that goal to then get the increased reimbursement that'll help your program down the road. The other thing is, like we're talking about, to offset with commodities. So if you're buying a New York State hamburger, serve that with USDA French fries, USDA green beans. That'll drive your food costs down. If anyone was in Verona this past summer with me, we did a whole exercise in menu planning. And the big thing is to not just look at an individual meal, but over the course of a week, over the course of the month, and the whole year, how are those foods balancing out? So as long as you're offsetting those food costs with your lower cost items and you're free, like, you know, I think as Ann said, it's not free, but your entitlement money, you will work out in the end. And the other thing is, it's not all or nothing. Again, you don't have to jump all in and do only New York State beef. You can do a mix. You can drive your food costs down that way. Sometimes when it's on bonus, I get the turkey taco meat and I mix that in with our ground beef to just make the New York State product stretch a little bit further when we do tacos. So that's another good strategy. Some people do that with vegetables, mix a New York State vegetable in with a commodity product to drive that cost down. And then also look at other streams of revenue. Can you increase your catering or your a la carte? Is your district CEP or newly CEP? Because that'll change your finances as well and just help offset some of those costs from more expensive products.
Thanks, Sarah. We're gonna pass to Anne. Same question.
Everything Sarah said. So it's a really good answer. I really don't have much else to say except that you do have to try to balance, and even if it's not in one meal, like you might have an expensive meal because everything you're purchasing is New York State, and your New York State Thursday day may be an expensive meal, but then have some grilled cheese and tomato soup and green beans the next day, and it kind of averages out. So it doesn't even have to be like in the same meal, but just look at your overall week too, and what can you and how where you can balance some cheaper menus with some more expensive menus. That's about all I have to say. Sarah said it all.
Thanks, Anne. Well, we're gonna pass it to our other panelists if the both of you have more to add. I'm gonna have Lauren go next.
I do agree. She did say it all. It was very well said. The one thing that I will add is right now we still have supply chain assistance funds. Some of you might still have local food for school funds if you still have those, and those are a ticket right to making 30% because you have all of those extra funds. You can buy all of your beef with your supply chain assistance. Well, I should reword that. Pauling can buy beef with their supply chain assistance funds. I know some of our bigger districts maybe not able to do that, but utilizing that extra income towards these items that are more expensive definitely balance out your bottom line. And that may be why there was so many stars on your map this year, because we had those extra funds coming in. It gave some of us on that 30% line, just missing it by a little bit, the opportunity to get ahead. So, and again, like I think it was Sarah that said it with CEP, if you're eligible for CEP, those funds now are going to be coming in excess on a more consistent basis. So I'm hoping to make up the deficit of when the supply chain funds are gone, I'm now CEP, that I'll be able to continue purchasing this way.
Thanks, Lauren. And last but not least, Deb.
So what to add after all of those great comments is a bit of a challenge. However, those who know me, to come out with the conversation really isn't tough for me. But we just try to remember that we're the menu writers, right? We're the budget balancers. We're the menu writers. We already know how to run fiscally sound departments. So to bring in initiative like the 30% initiative, what we did here is we filled out the application. So then we knew what our goal number was. We knew that what our food cost was and how much of that dollars how to be in New York State items. And we just charted it and we watched it throughout the year go up and down, up and down. And we did not claim all of our New York items. And one of the reasons why my circle has such a deep milk one is because we knew milk was our biggest purchasing item. So we started with that. And if we started from the bottom up, the milk would have been much smaller, probably half the size that it is, because of the availability to purchase items even off season. So Lauren, I'm glad you mentioned Dagley earlier, because he is such a partner in all of this. So he said, you're buying these baby carrots, why don't you buy the kitchen carrots? So we stopped buying baby carrots and bought the 50-pound bag of New York State carrots and made our own carrot sticks instead of using the IW baby carrots. And that was an overall huge savings. Even though it was New York State product, it cost to make our own carrot sticks was cheaper than buying the baby carrots. So little things along the way that you can cut the corner and buy reusable storage containers instead of disposable storage containers, frees up maybe your paper expenses that you can slide over into your food cost.
Thanks, Deb. I'm gonna pass it to Lizzie for our next question.
All right, so I've heard just so many great nuggets about the 30%. And I was wondering if you guys could share what you would tell a new director who's considering the 30% for the first time, kind of in general, not specific to USDA foods, sort of expanding on some of the really great things you've already shared. And I'll start with Lauren.
Okay, so definitely your administrators buy-in. You want them to be on board with what you're doing. You want them to support your initiatives with your spending. The second one that I mentioned was bid shopping. You want to make sure that you either get these New York State items on your bid, or you look at other bids that you can piggyback or have as a cooperative with maybe your BOCES or other local BOCES in your areas that already have these vendors servicing schools around you, because distribution is definitely going to be your biggest battle. At least it is for me. Being a small school, I have limited storage, so to be able to take in a direct order from these vendors isn't likely for Pauling. So I need to have a distributor that's willing to come to me weekly for these things. And little by little, some of our distributors are adding more and more of these items because more and more directors are adding them to their bids and willing to spend the money to purchase these items. So the more of us that do that, the easier time we will all have in purchasing those items. And then lastly, I forget who mentioned it, but somebody mentioned filling out the application and knowing that 30% number ahead of time, because then you have a goal to reach. And just start tracking. I have a large Excel sheet, and unlike my colleague Deb, I don't have help in my office. So it is a one-man show and I am on an island, but I'm happy to do it to make it happen. And I track it weekly. All of my kitchens send me their production records and I just plug them into our system, my little Excel sheet, and everything calculates for me. One other thing that I did find helpful in my tracking is I added a chocolate milk and white milk button with no cost to my POS system. So that way it took one extra thing that's used at both breakfast and lunch off of me needing to compile it. I just print my report and I could see exactly how many milks were sold at lunch of each variety. So that's definitely something that was valuable in our tracking.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Deb, do you want to share a bit more about kind of advice or what you would say to a director considering it for the first time?
I would definitely remind them about the fact that there's resources. There's how many school districts in the state, how many meetings do you have in a day? There's bigger groups, smaller groups, but webinars like this and other ones that support these initiatives that are good for New York State good for our students or is out there all the time. Yes, you need your admin buy-in, but you also need your team buy-in. I'm sure there'll come a time can I share my spreadsheet out? Would anybody like to see how we track our stuff here?
Yeah, definitely. I think you should have
All right,
be
I'm going
able
to
to
share. Hopefully this works, okay? I'm going to share that one, share. So what you're looking at right here is a Google Sheet, which is populated in the field by our supervisors. This is a copy of the cover sheet. So in December, this is what they enter. They enter every day right off their production sheets, because the production sheets is what we have to submit for certification of our application. How many chocolate milks were served at lunch, at 1% fat-free, how many little lunches, which is a upstate yogurt and an upstate cheese stick with a grain. So it's all how many apple slices. Yay for the weekend. Right here's the weekend. Then we have a little spot here for notes. If I have a question, why is it blank? It tells me. And then each month is linked to the total page. So everything that's green is populated in the office. So in September, I paid 24 cents for my for my New York State milk. So I bought 8,575 milk. That's how much was served at 24 cents. At a glance, I can see my dollar. It's all not, I gotta double check some of these links, but it all comes together down at the bottom, so I can constantly track and see where we are as a district, where we are as a building. Yep, it all looks like they're all linking nice. We have some numbers that are missing to put them in for our costs, but if you're looking all of the time, then you know where you are. And I can tell just by September's numbers that we're on track. This is one building. I have to do it by building because I can't get different workbooks to link together to give me a sheet, but I have to look in 7 places. And I don't put any of this information in here. I just built the sheet. Does anybody have any questions about the sheet or want me to go over it again or point out anything? I guess not.
I don't hear any questions, but if you're okay with us, sharing it out, if folks ask their coordinators, yep, someone just asked for a template, so they can either reach out to their specific coordinator and we can share a few different templates. I know probably everyone on the call has a slightly different template that they use depending on their circumstances, so we're always happy to work with you to find the best.
Yeah, some people like subtract out their breakfast usage off their invoice and leave the rest for lunch. Some add up just the lunch. You do what's organically good for yourself, because each of us have our own little things that we like or don't like. But the Google Sheet platform is a wonderful opportunity to get all your data, because what maybe you didn't notice all the way on the left, you saw the white space. That's where we record our breakfast in the classroom. So right in that same sheet that they were already using that for me to put our claim in, now we just have some additional columns that they already know how to use. And those items were our big ticket items that we use all on a regular basis. So again, conversations, Sarah, like when we were up north, that's what's important, is the talking about it and ask the scary question, because we've all been scared. We all were nervous. Lauren, you remember you and I sat on the phone, right? And I shared out with you and I showed you something and you were like, oh, should have had a V8, right?
Great. Sarah, do you want to share a bit? I know a lot has been covered already, but anything about advice for folks?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. So just like everyone was saying, be organized with your tracking, reach out to CCE, because I think you guys have a lot of resources from other districts that have reached it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, especially if Excel's not your thing. Just, borrow from something somebody already has. And like, I think it was Deb and some others were saying, there's little hacks out there. So I just got a great idea from Buffalo City schools. Like them, we don't serve chocolate milk for breakfast. So I just am only counting my white milk I'm only counting my chocolate milk purchases toward lunch because it just saves one extra step. And then if you have a product like Upstate Farms string cheese or yogurt, and you can only use that product at lunch, just it helps with the tracking purposes for the breakfast not counting towards your 30%. And then also, if you haven't already, look at the application. It's on the Ag and Markets website, and it doesn't change. So you don't need to apply until August, but it's up there already. And I can tell you, my first year going into this, I was not organized. I didn't have my invoices copied. I didn't know what I would be asked for. So when I went to fill out my application, I was spending my summer in the business office, copying and scanning invoices and getting velocity reports. And so the next year, I was so much better organized, and I would file all that stuff so that when the time came to fill out the application, I had everything organized the way that I would need to just copy and plug it in and go. So the more that you can look at what's going to be asked of you come application time, the better prepared you can be and just make your life that much easier. And then my last tip would be, if like Lauren, you don't have the space to take a direct shipment of a lot of these things, a lot of people don't, see if you can partner with local districts, whether it's through a bid or a BOCES or something formal, or I have the luxury of having a lot of local partners, and we kind of piggyback on each other and say, hey, I'll take a shipment of this if you can come pick up half of it. So within what'll work for your school district, if they're okay with that, if you can be invoiced separately, just get creative to the best extent that you can, but don't be afraid to network, reach out to others and help each other.
Thanks, Sarah. Anne, would you like to close us out on this question?
Sure. So, definitely just checking out the 30% database, seeing what products are in there, and then seeing what products can you actually get. Like here in Western New York, we're really fortunate. We have, we're really fortunate with our distributors, and with having like and having like a local produce processor that takes in all of our, takes in all the squashes and potatoes. Like we can get, New York potato wedges and French fries and home fries like all year long. Squashes all winter. Like, so knowing what's in your area, talking to other districts that are near you, see if they're going for it, see what they're doing, checking in with, finding out who your regional farm to school coordinator is. Like when this all started back in 2018, I worked really close with Becky and with Cheryl, and it was really difficult. There were like hardly any products that qualified, and now the list is so, it's so big, like there's just I feel like if you can't have milk, that's one thing that could be hard, but like Cheryl mentioned earlier, a school district did qualify without milk, but it's really hard not to qualify if you just make some simple changes in your purchasing, and knowing what, and getting onto bids and planning ahead. And I do my tracking a little different, and I swear this is what, the 5th year or something. I do things a little different every year. I'll tweak something every year. Breakfast for me, I find that my staff all shares a breakfast milk sheet. They plug in what they use for breakfast for milk. Then at the end of the year, I get the velocity report from Upstate. I'll just delete out juice or anything that's not New York, and then I will subtract out month by month, because the prices change monthly. So month by month we'll subtract out our we'll just subtract out our breakfast milk, because everything else, all the Greek yogurt and buttermilk that we now purchase because we make our own ranch dressing, anything, any cottage cheese, everything that comes from Upstate is New York. So you really just have to get rid of juice, because that's for breakfast, and unfortunate, and then in that milk. And that the unfortunate thing about breakfast, somebody had a question in the chat. I don't know how the numbers will actually work out, but in my opinion, I feel like it might work out to include breakfast, because right now we're purchasing so much Dannon yogurt because we can't serve yogurt for breakfast. We don't offer cheese for breakfast. Those are two huge things right there. And apples, like, you know, we do the DOD apple slices because we can't, in government applesauce cups, because we don't want to serve anything else New York except milk. We don't want any crossover items. And there could be, you know, a lot of crossover items that could actually help us. So just knowing what you can get, checking your pricing, reaching out to people near you for, you know, for assistance, and working with your farm to school coordinators, you'll be successful. You'll be successful.
Lindsay, I just want to interrupt. I was going to put it in chat. I want to point out or ask Anne to clarify something. Why are you serving Dannon and stuff like that at breakfast? I know it has to do with tracking, but I don't want folks to think you just don't want to serve New York products at breakfast, because I know that's not true.
I would love to serve New York products at breakfast, but it's just because, because the first year was a complete nightmare for me. And in trying to all the crossover products that we were using, and then trying to pull them all out, it was just, it was a tracking nightmare. So, and there's just so much time in a day, and this already is, it is a process. And if you don't have any office staff to help you and stuff, it's, you know, a lot of things just gets shoved aside. Like, yeah, making the invoice copies. Okay. And then you end up with, you know, a folder this big with invoices that you have to go through and get onto spreadsheets, because it's like, it's having the time to do it. But yeah, it's all about crossover. And we also do not serve chocolate milk for breakfast. That's another thing too. So I mean, like, and so your breakfast milk, if you offered flavored milk for breakfast, your milk count would definitely go up. You know, and in addition to the cheese, the yogurt, the apples, the apple slices. And then we could and you can purchase those items. Now you're purchasing those items, if you're going to go use them for 30%, now you freed up entitlement money, because you're not getting because you don't need to or for DOD apples or something, you don't have to figure money in for those things. If we could purchase the New York items and have it count.
Thanks, Anne, for clarifying. All right, I'll get to Katie for our last panel question here.
Thanks. All right. So the last question is really geared toward Sarah and Anne, since they have had more than 1 year of success with the 30%. So the question is, what have you spent your 30% reimbursement dollars on? So I'll pass it to Sarah first, and if we have time at the end, we can hear from Lauren and Deb, because they've had a couple of months of increased reimbursement. But first, I'll hand it off to Sarah.
So to be honest, I don't know that I make a lot of money off the 30%. I certainly cover my costs, but at the end of the day, I might be walking away with a few $1,000s over if I had not done the 30% program. But that being said, I feel free to serve higher quality food, and that's what we've done. So we've switched to buying Boar's Head deli meats that we slice here in-house. We've switched to a whole muscle chicken product instead of chopped and formed. We're buying more local beef products, not just the ground beef, but and we're buying more seasonal vegetables. So really just trying to aim for higher quality foods, and especially now that our district is CEP, that's really just the direction that we're going. And then also with the 30% reimbursement, we've been able to buy some, more equipment. So again, it's not a huge dollar amount over covering our costs of these extra foods, but it's been nice to have that extra stream of revenue to help justify some costs for things like, food processors, things to help prep some of these local products that I might not have been able to afford otherwise.
Thanks. Anne?
I really can't say any specifics. Everything just goes back into, everything just goes right back into the program. So, I agree with Sarah. This program, I feel the farm to school, this 30% program where we can get more, put more New York products on the plates. It really changes the perception of school meals. Even and to your parents and, to you're helping the local economy, you're helping your local farmers. People love to hear that. To, take pictures. One place where I know that we lack, because we just don't have the staff yet, but hopefully we're going to hire a farm to school coordinator here soon. But like anytime you can take pictures of your beautiful meals and share that stuff out on social media, or put something on your district's district's Facebook page and stuff like that, like sharing with the community the changes in your program and the higher quality of the meals. It's huge, because even prior to CEP, when I came here last year, our meal counts they went up on their own, even though people were paying for their meals, because the quality of the meals was so much better. And the parents appreciate that. And so, but yeah, I can't really say for sure that I get this much extra money and I spend it on this or that. Everything just kind of if I need to buy equipment, I'll buy equipment, or, and of course everything, and we're getting, our food cost is a little bit higher, but the local food for schools and those other things will help bring that back down at the end of the year. So.
Thank you. So we are right around 3 o'clock, but I will give a quick chance if Lauren or Deb has a quick thing they want to throw in about what they've been spending their increased reimbursement on.
I'm with Sarah. I don't know that I really made money off the 30%, but I went into the program knowing that that was not my goal. It wasn't to make money. It was to offer better products to my community, and that's important to the Pauling community.
We're spending our profit, our additional funding on additional hands. We converted a lot of part-time hours to full-time hours, concentrating on some of this training on how do you handle and hold and process fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, it's a skill set. It's done by practice, and we're really looking forward to that. We've increased. We added 10 full-time positions, not all attributed to the 30%, but with the 30% in mind, we do that. I will say we don't serve chocolate milk at breakfast either, but we haven't served chocolate milk for breakfast since Lauren and I became a team about 8 years ago. Although we both love chocolate is not really, in Lauren's opinion, as a nutritionist, the best way to break your fast. She wants you to eat lots of grains and other milks. So and I didn't mention earlier, which is maybe going to baffle some people, is we don't spend any of our OGS money on DOD or the pilot. We put $0 into that. And it's all part of that other side of the balance, how you balance stuff out. So I just want to offer my help and assistance. If anybody wants to give me a call, wants to send me an email, I'll be happy to show all the things that we do here. I see Lauren shaking your head. I love to talk about what we do. We do things really well because we stick together, we talk things out, we figure it out. There's a lot of resources. Somebody asked a question about a CN auditor over here.
Well, yeah, actually, we do have a few minutes for additional questions, so I'm gonna hand it off to Christy to kind of facilitate that. But
yeah, Deb, I was just going to call that one out actually. So the question, I'll just repeat it for everybody in case they weren't looking at the chat. The question was, how do you explain to the CN auditor why you're buying something that is more than a non-New York product? So Deb, you started to answer. Why don't you take that away?
Sure. So the answer is that it's two different products. Because remember, you not only are we the menu writers, we're the spec writer. So if you have a item that you want to buy within your geo preference, that's a different item than grape juice, right? If you want to buy say I don't know, let's try the carrots, for example, right? You can buy carrots from Ginsberg that comes from, it's Istabibble somewhere, or we can buy carrots from our 30-mile radius. All of our local produce is within a 30-mile radius of our Board of Ed building. So it's two different line items.
Does anybody else?
That's exactly what I was just typing in the chat was, if you say your goal is, okay, I want to buy some New York State beef, have two different line items on your bid, and bid one with your geographic preference for New York State and bid a second for your generic beef, whatever your fat percentage is that you want. And then you're going to have two beefs to choose from on your bid. And that's smart in two ways. One way, you're satisfying your procurement laws, and two, you have that beef which might be slightly less expensive. If you meet your 30%, you have the option to now start buying a lesser expensive beef if those are your goals, is to make that threshold. Or if you're running out of money, that's also there as a backup. But having those two different lines on your bid that's key. It generates a more accurate bid responses.
Don't really see any other questions in here in the chat. Does anybody else want to take themselves off mute or throw another question in the chat that we can ask the panel to address?
I saw that somebody wrote that DoD and pilot are too expensive, and it does take a mind shift, because when you're spending more dollars on the New York State item, that increased cost is contributing easier to the 30% that you need to make. So I spend a lot of money in milk. It's expensive. I nearly fell over dead when I saw Deb's milk prices, because they're a whole 10 cents less expensive than what I'm paying. But because I'm paying those numbers, I'm able to meet the 30% easier. So you have to weigh those options of, yes, I'm paying more for milk, but I never diverted for chicken products before. So now I'm diverting to chicken products, and I'm taking a little bit of a cut there with how much I spend in those items. So it is give and take, and sometimes you just have to close your eyes and hit enter. When you're spending a little bit more money, that's kind of nerve-wracking.
We did have another question about consumption of root and fall vegetables like squash. So if anybody wants to answer that one, basically the question is, what's your consumption success with root fall vegetables like squash?
I'll take that one. We're very fortunate here in Middletown to have a commissary kitchen, but we don't do the New York State farm menu planning. We had our own farm fresh Fridays, and we highlight something fresh every single month. So our students here took on the potato mixture. We did a potato, rutabaga, yellow beet roast that we now have menued in our 6-week cycle, a potato bar. So on that potato bar is going to be whole white potatoes, whole sweet potatoes with any kind of topping that you want to like put on top of it. Don't always measure your success on the first time you do it, because the first time you do it is your own personal learning experience. So if you venture out from behind the line and connect with your customer, which being a former waitress, that's how you get the best tips, and listen to what they tell you. They'll tell you what they eat, what they don't eat, what they don't like. I have a cute little story about a little blonde-headed kindergartner and a Brussels sprout. We did crisscross applesauce in a big circle, and I had all this fresh produce around, and we were rolling melons and touching food and all this stuff. And she said, "Oh, look at this cute little head of lettuce." No, honey, that's a Brussels sprout. So when it showed up on the service line the next day, it was the chatter of the whole building because the story got out about she thought it was a lettuce and now it's a Brussels sprout. So if you don't try it, you'll never know if you can be successful. If it sits on the counter, it's never going to be on a plate because it never got on the service line. So, don't rewrite your whole menu. Just start dotting some stuff in along the way and see what their perception is and how they like it or they don't like it. We do butternut squash soup, a puree. We do a topping for our chili with it. We use like the big squashes everywhere you can think of.
Does
And
anybody else
taste
wanna-
testing. Taste testing. If you have anybody who can help with student taste testing, that makes all the difference in the world for the kids. We Brussels sprouts, when we did back in Hamburg, we had a farm to school coordinator, and she would go around to the elementary schools. Every week we try a different recipe, and a couple times during the month we take those recipes and make them ahead of time, and she would go out and give stickers and taste testing out in the cafeteria. It's amazing because kids just won't, they just won't try things. But for a sticker, you'd be surprised. they'll taste it for a sticker. So and most of the times they really like it, so taste testing.
Anybody else have a good root vegetable story? I don't know if you'll top the Brussels sprouts one. That's pretty good. Okay, we did have one other question about the legislation. The question is there anything the New York State legislation can do to improve on this program other than money? And we just wanted to sort of direct everybody to the New York Food for New York Kids Coalition. I think Cheryl dropped the link to how you can actually join this. They do a lot of advocacy work in support of the program and support of farm to school in general. And so if you are not a part of this, definitely take part in it. I will redrop it in the chat so that it's fresher for everybody. Let's see, is there any other questions? Anybody, you can unmute yourself or drop it in the chat and I'll bring it up.
So does anybody think they're going to give it a good old try this year? Yeah, I see you shaking your head. You think you're going to jump in the waters there?
All right, well, I think we are almost at time. I don't know, Cheryl, you want to lead us out?
Yeah, I really want to thank our panelists. I always learn something whenever I listen to school food directors, and this is not an exception to that. So really thank you for all your time and your commitment to this work. It really is so important. And thank you all for participating. The questions were great. We have a lot to follow up on, so we'll send out the recording, we'll send out the presentation, tracking sheets, a link to join the coalition if you would like, and there's some other things as well that we'll send out too. But really can't overemphasize, there is a village of folks here to support you. Your peers are here to support you. The coordinators are here to support you. State agencies are here to support you. So if you're on the fence, please do reach out and we can help you do that. And local procurement exists outside of the 30% too. We're a big champion of the 30% program, but if you just want to test the waters and you don't want to commit to the 30%, that's okay too. Just feel free to reach out to your coordinator. Oh, good to hear, Stephanie. I'm on track for the 30%. That's awesome. We'll get a little star in the Finger Lakes. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate all of your time.